crimes, as you can see in your community, diminish. When it comes to code enforcement, by the way, I intend to take a different role than Mr. Tutanich, which is a bit of a very passive role. Wherever I go across the city, people say, I want the codes enforced. Noise, illegal dumping, whatever it is, it's not happening. Well, I think that the city attorney should lead a team, including the mayor and all the city departments, and go to every city council district and identify the top priorities for code enforcement, working with a reinvigorated neighborhood prosecutor program, and actually solve the problems that you see. I've done more with less running a nonprofit public interest law firm. I can do it as your city attorney.
Thank you.
Next question is, what will you do in the next 4 years differently than you've done in these 4 years? First, these years, if you get reelected, and the question for the other candidate is, what will you do differently in the next 4 years?
Who goes first? You first. You know, when I ran the first time, I published this document called A Blueprint for Change. It's still available online. Take a look at it. Everything we said we'd do, from billboards to medical marijuana, to going after the, becoming a porcupine defense, everything we said we'd do, we've done. Take a look at our accomplishments on our website. I'm going to hold the fort and do exactly what we've done in the past. You've got a track record with me. I don't need training wheels. I've tried cases, the guys in my office know that. They know that I'm the real deal in that office and that we are doing a lot of good things. Crime is down. Code enforcement is part of our Safe Neighborhoods division, and it is down. The reason that the Part 1 crime is down is because broken windows. Fixing the broken windows, fixing the little things so that big things don't happen. And it's been down 3 successive years. The police department does a great job, but without prosecutors prosecuting cases, it's catch and release. And that's the propagation of fish in the lake.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Crime didn't start going down 3 years ago. Crime's been going down for years. And maybe it's going down because I wrote some of the toughest gun laws in the country. Maybe that's why violent crime is down in Los Angeles. Maybe it's going down because I've written laws and created programs in support of them to help kids find alternative to gangs. Now, as to the priorities that we would have as public officials, here are mine. First, we have to protect neighborhoods, not just in words, but really mean it. My priorities involve families and kids. I mentioned earlier, gangs and guns, and ensuring kids have safe passageways to the schools that they go to, and that those schools themselves are safe. Jobs are a priority of mine. I'm not going to let an economic development ordinance languish for a year, costing the city jobs and money. I'm going to get right on it, make it a priority. Reducing risk. You know, the city attorney isn't even bothering to lead an effort across the city to reduce liability and risk in each department.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Again, here's a guy that talks about gangs and kids, but yet he endorsed a candidate for assembly who killed legislation that would have enacted school districts to fire teachers who sexually abused children. His endorsed candidate, he's been talking about endorsements all night. You know, I had endorsements in the last race and it didn't turn out too well. I can tell you this, that the endorsement I want is your vote. At the end of the day, his endorsement killed that bill. Look at the reality, folks. There's a track record with me. Go back and check our accomplishments on our website. Go back and check and see what we've done in terms of success rate, in terms of criminal prosecutions. Take a look at our reserve deputy program, where you've got 50 people right now, over 300 over the last 2.5 years, trying cases for free every single day in the city for you, saving $2 to $3 million a year. Our payroll is greater than my budgeted allocation for the city, and yet we balance and give money back every single year. We run a tight ship at the city attorney's office now because of management, because we're real lawyers. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So again, we talk about priorities and kids. As you know, I wrote the law in the wake of the Penn State scandal that says every college and university employee in the state of California for the first time will have to report child abuse on their campuses, because we saw from Penn State that moral obligation isn't enough. Kids. I said earlier, I wrote the law that says that kids with pre-existing conditions are entitled to health care. Kids, as a city council member, I was the person who created the Healthy Alternatives to Smoking Trust Fund that infused money into the least advantaged areas of our city so that kids with nothing to do would have recreation opportunities. Kids. I wrote, as the chair of the budget committee, I made sure that there was money for disadvantaged kids to have summer jobs so they would be having something meaningful to do and not creating crime in their communities. You bet you should compare our records. I'll do that every day of the week.
And since you liked the lightning rod so much last time, we're going to do it again. And it just seems like we voted. Oh yes, that was last week, I remember. We had Prop 34 on the ballot to abolish the death penalty. Did you favor it or oppose that? 34. Yes or no? Did you go on? Prop 34, abolishing the death penalty.
I voted for them. Can I tell why?
Well, what is your...
Did you vote for what?
You voted for Proposition 34. And did you, what about, did you favor it or oppose it?
I favor the death penalty.
Okay, so go ahead.
Can I tell you why I voted for it? Because no one's been executed in California for years. And what we're doing instead is paying more than $100 million more than we need to that should be going to educate our kids and putting law enforcement officers on the street. Because the death penalty doesn't deter a gangbanger from shooting somebody. Because the death penalty in California has been so cost ineffective that you have leaders across the political spectrum saying, this has to change. Were I in a position to enforce the death penalty and it's the law of the state, you bet I'll enforce it, because that's what I do. But given the choice between an ineffective, broken system that's taking money away from public safety on the streets and the status quo, I'm going to vote to change the world to make it more effective from a public safety standpoint.
This is a real passionate issue for me because I've actually argued for the death penalty. And I know most likely this guy will never be killed by the state of California. But I also know one thing. I've looked in the eyes of victims who've had their children murdered. They've had their children murdered by gang members. Judge, you've seen that in courtrooms. And I'll tell you right now, I don't care how much it costs. If that SOB sits and languishes in prison, knowing that somebody's thinking about killing him for the rest of his life, I'm okay with that. I'm okay. At the end of the day, murder cannot be condoned. Murder cannot be condoned. There are too many parents that have lost children, and if the guy gets a death penalty and we don't kill him, he sits there wondering if today's the day he's going to get that verdict. He's wondering today, if today's the day they're going to pull the plug. At the end of the day, it's another part of punishment. It may not deter, but it does punish the person that committed the murder and that was convicted by 12 people who found that the appropriate penalty, it's not a penalty that I impose, it's a penalty that a jury imposes.
Thank you. Let's do it now.
Next proposition, the 3 strikes law. Proposition 36, to relax the 3 strikes law. Favor it or oppose it?
Voted for it.
I voted to relax the 3 strikes law.
You both voted for it.
Right.
We'll go on to the next one, if you agree. Next is Prop 37, the genetically engineered food labels. Did you vote for it or against it?
Against it.
I want to know what I eat. So I voted for them to inform me as to whether or not the food is genetically tainted. You know, I'm for you guys knowing. I mean, I'm for everybody knowing.
Why did we vote against it?
So John asked why I voted against it. Because on balance, I was concerned that it was going to create a costly new bureaucracy that didn't actually inform people about anything. Because I was concerned that in a recession, we were going to see a dramatic escalation in food prices that no one can afford right now. Because I was concerned that the promise of more information, which is a very good thing, was never actually going to be realized in California. And as somebody said to me earlier tonight, they support me because I'm a practical person. This was not a practical initiative. It had a general good intention behind it, but implementation would have raised prices and caused confusion.
You know, I'm all about knowing. Education and knowing makes you able to make good, intelligent decisions. And so I don't want to put anything in my mouth that might be harmful, and I don't want to feed it to my grandkids. And so at the end of the day, I voted for disclosure. And if it creates a bureaucracy, then let's save some money on that the state's wasting, like building a bullet train from here to nowhere, and hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, come on, let's get smart. We're in an era where we fly by planes. We move across the country in hours, and we're going to ride a bullet train? Come on, it just doesn't make sense. Let's waste the money on ourselves, on knowing what we're eating.
One more curious. On Proposition J on the county ballot to extend the sales tax for transit. Were you in favor of that or against that?
Strongly supported. May I explain?
I'm against it.
Good. All right, so as most of you know, I wrote the law that became Measure R. $40 billion to dramatically change our public transportation system, including, by the way, a way to get from the valley through the pass onto the city side, so that you can go by subway from North Hollywood to Westwood. Then, I not only voted, I authored the legislation to allow Measure J to go to the valley. Why? Because right now, we are in desperate need of jobs, and Measure J would have jump-started at least 250,000 jobs just here in Los Angeles County, and accelerate the pace of building those projects. It's one of the things that Los Angeles needs the most: jobs and better ways to get around. It took an hour for me to get to my here from my house today. I live about 20 minutes away. We can do better than this. Measure J was essential. Only in California would a 65% vote for something not be enough. Next time, it will be enough, and we'll realize the dream that all of us want to realize. People working in our community and moving fast from place to place.
The one thing I learned, I started this job as city attorney when I was 57 years old. I was in the private sector for 32 years as an attorney. I shouldn't say 32 years, 22 years and about 8 years as a DA. One thing I learned is we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. We don't know how to allocate money properly to put it to where it needs to be put best. We have to prioritize. Mike Fuhrer has never met a tax he didn't like. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to get to a point where we can spend our money properly. Spend it so that it is put to work. I'm all for jobs, and I'm all for union jobs. I'm a member of ILWU, but I can tell you this, that I am not for reaching into your pocket to finance a project that we can do by allocating and controlling our budget better.
Again, we need to understand what's at stake. Measure J wouldn't have raised anybody's tax. If you believe Mr. Tutanis, that's what you would think. All Measure J would have done was to say in about 26 years, when the tax that already exists would expire, it would continue. Why? Because if it continues, you can then bond against that future revenue and make all these projects happen now when it's cheapest and we need it the most. That's what Measure J would have done. It wasn't going into anybody's pocketbook. It was creating an easy way to finance what we need most now.
Measure J went down because it was, I don't hate to use this word, voodoo economics. It was a hidden tax on your dollars that would have continued on. Taxes never end. Once they're imposed, they don't end. They just continue to go. I'm not for taxing anybody until it's proven to me that we can spend our money properly. And we're having a problem with that. Our revenues aren't down in the city of LA. Our costs are out of control. I took a 30% cut in my budget. A 30% cut from 117 under my predecessor to about $81 million today. My payroll was $94 million. We balanced and gave back a surplus to the city. Things can be done with management. We need to become better managers in government before we become tax and spenders.
The next question has to do with truants. The Los Angeles Unified School District has an enormous number of truants, hundreds of thousands of truants. A truant is defined as a kid who hasn't been in school for three days, over 3 days. And we understand that the city attorney's predecessor, Rocky Delgadillo, had a memorandum of understanding with the Los Angeles Unified School District that never got signed to have cooperation between the city attorney's office and LAUSD to deal with truants. Why hasn't it been signed? And what are your policies in the future with regard to truants?
Great. As it happens, I just talked to the superintendent of schools this afternoon. And I said to him, were I to be city attorney, could we find a way to have a deep partnership on issues of school safety, truancy, and related causes? He said to me that would be great and refreshing, because he's never had that conversation with this city attorney, ever. Now, from my standpoint, leaders need to prioritize the big stuff. This truancy question is the part of a much deeper question, and that is how we make sure our kids stay in school, that they're safe for all of us, because they need to be in a position where they're going to graduate and get jobs. So I want to have a partnership that's very deep. Superintendent Daisy agrees. That partnership will have several aspects to it. First of all, as city attorney, we need to be working with the district attorney and the school district on the side of making sure that truant kids get back into school. Punishing them alone is not going to be enough.
Thank you.
I met with Superintendent Cortinas 4 times on this issue. Also on an issue of imposing life skills in the in LA Unified School District, because I thought there was a dearth of education on life skills. And so in meeting with him, it became clear that they were not going to want to cooperate and open up their doors and open up their books to us so that we can get involved in this. When you can't get rid of sexually abusing teachers, how are you going to get information about truancy? We do prosecute truants, though. When we learn from a teacher or from an educator that, or a principal that a kid is truant, we will go after the parent. We don't go after the kid. We go after the parent, we bring them in, we counsel them, we give them an opportunity to correct themselves. Children it's not their fault they're not in school. It's their parents' fault that they're not in school. And we need to make sure their parents understand that schools are important. And we do that in our office right now, every single day.
Thank you. Okay, before we have the closing statements, first of all, John, who's going to go first in the closing?
Mr. Trutan.
Okay, before he does that, okay, 2 things. Number 1, we have the gift certificates from Fam's Restaurant. Each of the gentlemen are going to pick numbers for the winners. And number 2, please clean up when we're done. We don't have a lot of help here to clean up. And number 3, most important part of the program is your opportunity to meet with the 2 candidates and have your personal questions answered. John?
Ready? Tell me when you're ready. Go ahead. Thank you for providing this opportunity. Let me start by saying something that I haven't said all night. This is an office that requires a real prosecutor and a real attorney. The American Prosecution Association, a national organization, last year named me the Prosecutor of the Year in regards to innovation. I was the most innovative prosecutor in the nation. I won that award. The California Narcotics Officers Association named me Region 3 Prosecutor of the Year. First time in the history of the organization that award went to a city attorney. Never has it gone to a city attorney before, 7,000 cops strong statewide. We have been hard on crime, really hard. We've imposed about 44 injunctions on 72 different gangs. We went after MTA, Metropolitan Transit Associates, taggers, who are basically gangs in the making. They're just as violent. And we've imposed injunctions on them, and they said they couldn't be done. We've been saving the taxpayers money. 116 out of 134 trials, favorable verdicts, saving $235 million. We've gone after those people that prey on us. Your homes are probably your largest investment. But if there's been a home in your neighborhood that's been foreclosed upon, your property went down 3%. We went after Deutsche Bank and US Bank for creating slums in our neighborhoods where gangs and prostitutes and drug dealers can propagate. And we got an injunction to make them clean those properties up within 30 days. We went after US Bank, who lost $95 million in mortgage-backed debacle, mortgage-backed security debacle in our pension plan. We went after them even in light of the council and the Lacers board telling us wouldn't give us authority. We did it as a prosecutor. We have been independent. Mike talked about the board trying to cut the council trying to cut my powers. Well, let me tell you this.
Thank you.
The city council has done this for every administration. Bert Pines, Ira Reiner, Rocky Del Gatillo, and now me. I'm in pretty good company.
Okay, may I have extra time, please?
All right, very good. Thank you all very, very much. You know, I want to say, as we're concluding here, something about my dad, who came tonight. You know, many of you are aware that I chose to pursue public service because of the example my father set for me. You know, my dad was a prisoner of war during World War II who barely survived that experience. But when he emerged from it, he decided to pursue the most important work in the world. And for my father, that worked with the training of young kids, so he became a school teacher and then a principal. And even at almost 90 years old, he still volunteers in LA public schools, teaching kids about ethics, how to stand up to bullies. Important work. That lesson wasn't lost on me. For me, public service, both as an elected official and as a director of VetCedec Legal Services, has been about finding in my own life a way to express that admonition to find the most important work in the world and get it done. I mentioned at the outset that I'm learning to be the problem solver in chief for the city of Los Angeles. That takes the skills that I've honed both as a lawyer and a leader. It takes not just bluster. It takes being able to collaborate and be pragmatic about solving our deepest problems. It requires prioritizing that which matters most. Mr. Tanich talks about budgeting and revenue. Were I city attorney, we would have less of a problem because it would have prioritized economic development and revenue-creating ordinances, not letting them languish. Because I would have prioritized managing our risks so that in our departments from police to building and safety, we're not replicating problems that are leading to lawsuit payouts, and instead redirecting that money to your police officers and firefighters. Being city attorney is about judgment, integrity, and leadership. We know each other for a long time. That's the kind of leadership I've been able to provide to you since I took office. I look forward to continuing as your city attorney. Thanks very much.
Okay, now, Jules, come up here. We have to pick some winners here. And hopefully both gentlemen will be able to attend the holiday toy drive on December 2nd. Jules?